Cool. So just welcome to the last talk of the day. I think it's about half an hour, and we're all feeling a little bit worn out now. Can I just say it'd be really good if everyone could come to the closing remarks, because we do, want to get some feedback and that kind of thing. But also we've got a couple of I don't know what to call them, prizes to give out that people have done on the Pentest stand and the NCC stand today. So that's pretty worthwhile. So I'd just like to introduce Stephen now to talk about exploiting Android smart locks.
Exploring.
Oh, exploiting.
I wish I could exploit them, it would be far more fun.
Cool.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for staying. I appreciate you've probably had a very, very long day. If anyone else is like me, does anybody get up earlier than 6 in the morning? 5 in the morning? 4 in the morning? Oh, it's very impressive. Thank you. I can tell you're probably flagging, so I'll sum this up as quickly as I can, but keep it interesting all the same. So, first of all, welcome to B-Sides. I know it's a little bit late in the day, but I haven't heard anybody welcome anybody yet, so we'll crack on with that. My name is Stephen Fisher-Davis. I work at Cytec Consultants, based up in Stoke. I've just opened up the Newport branch in Wales, so I'm one of the newest senior digital forensic consultants. We work on computers and mobile phones, doing JTAG, chip-off analysis, including detailed forensic analysis of computers for both private sector and law enforcement agencies. So Cytec has been running since 1978, so quite an established company. But I'm very new to the firm, but I thought come and give the talk nonetheless because I find this sort of stuff interesting. Hopefully some of you guys will find it interesting. And just a quick show of hands if I could. Is anybody here from this sort of digital forensics arena? Is it mainly cybercrime? Oh, so there's a few people in the room. It's not so much for cybercrime this talk, it is more digital forensics, but as I said, I'll try and keep it interesting nonetheless, because it's nice to see sort of where testing is going, and if anybody here can sort of further improve this testing, it would be greatly appreciated as well, because I've had to call this exploring smart locks, not exploiting smart locks, because I thought, oh yeah, Android smart locks, this is going to be such an easy project to do. I'm going to be able to crack it straight away, give everybody an amazing solution, and we're going to be able to get around smart locks very, very easily, but that wasn't the case, unfortunately, and I'm just going to go through all the painstaking testing that I went through, so none of you have to, because it wasn't the most fun thing in the world, but it was important nonetheless, I feel. So, what are smart locks, first of all? So, in Android Lollipop 5.0, Android introduced a service called Google Trust Agents. So in your phone, you might not realize that smart locks are yet enabled, but if you were to go through settings, security and trust agents, in Lollipop they've got enabled a smart lock feature. And if you tick that, you will then get a new setting in your settings menu in the settings, security and smart locks. And this is what I'm going to be talking about today. Okay, so smart locks can be used to unlock a phone either in the proximity to a place, a device or a person's face. So first of all, I can go through the most important part of this, and I know it's just going to be on the first slide, but the most important thing you need to learn about smart locks is they look absolutely no different to a phone that doesn't have a lock at all. So if I just quickly flip over to my phone, so if I go to the document camera, you can see here I've got my Android Wear device paired up with the side of my phone. So if we unlock the device here, you can see just at the bottom there's an unlocked lock. So the way I kind of remember this now, if you slide up, you're going to be getting yourself a nice P60 at the end of the year. If you end up tapping the lock, you're going to be getting a very nice P45, because that re-invokes the lock. So, bad news, if anybody is trying to look into smart, if anybody seizes a mobile phone, it really is as simple as that. Unlock the phone and slide, you're in, you're getting your bonus at the end of the year. If you get in and you tap on the lock, that's now going to re-invoke the smart lock. So it's very, very easy for somebody who's inexperienced and doesn't recognize the smart lock to re-invoke it on the phone. So, well, that's one of the most important things I was going to sort of show really as well. Just do not tap this. Do not tap it. Always slide. So if anybody takes anything from it today, here we go. I need to go back to the PC. Don't tap. Only slide. Okay. Let's get it up. Don't slap. Just slide. Right. So when you first go in to set up your smart locks, you can see here I've got a few menus. I'm going to stand back a little bit so you can see it's a bit more friendly. So you can see straight away now, going into the smart lock menu, it says screen lock password. So my phone with a little unlocked padlock in it, it's not that my phone doesn't have a smart lock, it's that, it doesn't have a lock. You can see straight away there, I have a passcode on my phone. So that should be the first thing that comes to your mind. Settings, security, passwords, do they have a passcode? Unless it has the word none at the top, you're looking at a device that's using a smart lock or something very similar. So again, down the bottom we'll go into the smart lock menu there. There's no easy way to have a look at what smart lock somebody has from the phone menus alone. So as you can see, when I tap the smart lock menu, the first thing I'm greeted with is either my passcode for my phone or my swipe code. So you can't go in there and look at it. You have to do it manually yourself. Okay, on to the next slide. So I'll go through the place locks first of all. So when Lollipop was first introduced, the only way that you could set something to a location was by going into Google Maps, and you could either set your phone to unlock in the proximity of your home or your work location. They were the only two options available. There's been a recent update where anybody can geofence any area they want. So is everyone familiar with the concept of geofencing? So quite recently, and over the past few years, Apple and Google have been very helpfully keeping an eye on everybody's phones. Say when you're on the internet and you have an established 3G connection, even if you aren't connected to a Wi-Fi network, it's uploading those Wi-Fi SIDs, so the system ID, and MAC addresses to the internet. And those addresses are being used in a sort of crowdsourced way, so that if you walk into an area, so I go here and I suddenly walk into Starbucks Newport, my phone knows that even without an established GPS connection, that I'm in Newport, which is really handy because that means you can save a lot of power and still get an idea of where you're going. So if you want to send a tweet, for example, and then you want to tag a location onto that, you can very easily just send, oh, having a lovely time in Center Parcs today, and without having to establish your GSM or your 3G connection, your phone will have a look around you, look for crowdsourced connections, and it will be able to work out where you are just from your Wi-Fi signal. So great for users, but it also enables this smart lock feature to be possible. So if I go on to the next slide, you can see there with a trusted place as home, the first time I use it, I'm going to be reminded by Google just to check, last night when you were having a few beers and you thought that your smart lock was a really, really good idea, you've come home now and I've turned your lock screen off. So this isn't very helpful for forensic examiners, because the first time, if somebody foolishly accidentally enables the smart lock, they're going to be reminded, this is what's just happened on your phone. I'm going to give you a bit of a reminder to say, your phone's unlocking whenever you come home now, are you sure you want this to happen? So unfortunately, accidental locks aren't going to happen quite so often as we'd like. So the second type of lock, which I've gone on to, is device lock. So with a device lock, you can either do this with an NFC connection or a Bluetooth connection. So my phone here, you can see when I'm unlocking it, is, oh, I can't do that, can I? I've got to swap back. So if I go to the dock cam here, you can see my phone is currently sat unlocked. So again, you've got the nice unlocked symbol there. You see that open padlock? But as soon as I turn off my smartwatch, so if I can browse to that there, here we go. Go to settings. Go down and power off my watch. You can see just how quickly one of these locks will invoke. Shutting down. And immediately there, it's lost a Bluetooth connection, and I now no longer have a lock on my phone. So this is very, very quick and a very immediate action. And this also works when you leave the proximity of the device. So I've set this on my phone, so whenever I'm near my phone, I don't want to be bothered by my lock screen because I know it's on my wrist. If I walk more than sort of 8 to 10 meters away from my watch, it's going to kick in immediately. So forensic considerations for this is for the police in particular, or if you're an information security firm, I'm sure that all of your phones in your firm, whether Android, iOS, BlackBerry, whatever it might be, all of your phones are going to be locked by some sort of powerful encryption. So even if we were to do a JTAG analysis on these phones, if we were to do a chip-off analysis on these phones, all we're going to get is a lovely copy of all of the encrypted data. So why would we throw away the opportunity to seize the key to the safe? So a lot of people are seizing mobile phones these days, but they're not seizing the devices that might be powering them up. And other considerations you can make as well are, not that I'd recommend doing this, but if you were really clever, you could pair this to an embedded medical device. You want to be damn sure that it's got a good battery on it if you're going to be Bluetooth pairing this to your pacemaker or insulin delivery system, but that is something you can do. As well, is anyone familiar with BTLE, the Bluetooth Low Energy technology? So BTLE is a small token device, no bigger than a £2 piece, probably the thickness of about £2 coins at the most. And BTLE, there's a really good paper written by Alex Lester, I believe the guy's name is. And he has written a sort of research study on BTLE and their uses. So the idea with BTLE, this is going to start really entering the mainstream, whereby if you're a Virgin Galactic customer, let's say, you're probably paying quite a premium to have your card every year. So they're going to try and slim these devices down, embed BTLE into them, so that when you walk into the flight lounge for the day, your BTLE device is picked up by the airport lounge because it's emitting an ID. That airport knows that you're there, and then you receive a text message that says what the Wi-Fi password is for the day from the lounge. So you could technically hide a Bluetooth low energy device in your ceiling, you could have it in the wall, you could have it in your television, anything at all, and you can pick that, and whenever you're in close proximity to it, your phone will unlock. So one of the biggest examples I've seen for this, and I've seen at least 3 people now, and this is, I've gone through a lot of people's cars trying this, is that if you were investigating a criminal and you had the right warrants, etc., you could potentially take their phone, take it to their car, fire up the ignition, Bluetooth on the car turns on, their phone unlocks. So you've got a strong 256 AES encrypted Android device that all you need to do is take it to their car, turn the key in the ignition, and it'll decrypt itself for you. Why would we not want to do that? Why would we not? Why would we throw away the key to the safe? And I've seen people in quite senior places that you wouldn't think would have this sort of thing enabled, but again, the first time you add a smart lock, the first thing you're welcome with is, would you like to pair your device, so whether this be your car, whether it be your Moto 360 or whatever, it's going to say, hey, smart locks are a great idea, why don't you add this device onto your smart lock? And originally, I haven't added this into the slide yet, that would just straight up drop into your protected devices, your trusted devices. So the first time you go in, you go, oh yeah, why not have a go on smart locks? Bang, you hit trust on it. And I've taken this to people's cars and I've shown them that their phone's doing this, and they had absolutely no idea that they'd been setting it. But I think Google got quite smart for this, because people would have been like, my code isn't working anymore, my code turns off every time I go into the car. Now when you go to a vehicle or to a Bluetooth device, the first time you add it, you have to confirm your passcode now to add it to one of those trusted devices. So no longer will we be able to just sort of sneak up to somebody's car, turn their Bluetooth on and add it to a trusted device. You also need their passcode. Everyone with me so far? Everyone's still awake? Thank you very much. Okay, so, and again, the first time that you unlock it, you're going to get this reminder here, say, oh, you've just connected to this. I'm just going to let you know, the first time you use this device, you told me last time I connect to this device, you should turn my lock screen off. So again, users that set this inadvertently when they're drunk, or when they think it's a really good idea, they're going to get that reminder the next time they turn their Bluetooth speaker on, the next time they go to their car or whatever. One of the things that you should be really aware of if you're looking for Bluetooth devices, Android Wear is a really big thing now. It's really picking up. This sort of Android Wear disconnected, that should be screaming out to you, there's something missing, I need to go and get that extra device, because that's sort of saying, there's a key to this safe, I don't know if it's there. And one of the really big things, I don't know, again, unless you forensically analysed a mobile phone, you wouldn't necessarily know this. For forensic examiners, we need ADB access. ADB is the bread and butter for all mobile forensics involving Android. ADB is short for Android Debug Bridge, enables us a connection into the phone to push files, to pull files. So for basic logical examinations, we'll push in an agent into the phone, which acts as a Trojan, and that will then open a back door to the phone so we can download your live contacts, calls, internet history, and a various menagerie of other things. But one of the biggest things that we need to use at the minute is called BKMGR, short for Backup Manager. And we can use that to pull an entire backup of your phone. So that includes app data, APKs, APK cache, all enabled with Android debug mode. And Google, very, very, very lovingly, have enabled anything with a smart lock. There's absolutely no restrictions to you popping into the menus and enabling ADB mode. So if you've got something with a smart lock, you can go in with ADB mode, plug it into your computer, pair it with your computer, and even if the code re-kicks in at a later stage, you're going to have unlimited, unrelinquished access to that device. On older versions of Android, you could potentially privilege escalate, or you could pull a copy of their lock code. You could turn their lock code off. Again, this does differ from handset to handset, but I think you'd all agree a really useful feature to have. And it's quite surprising, really, that Google enabled smart locks, but left the ability to enable ADB on. So I thought that was really useful. So, right, so everybody's sort of been thinking, well, if you can't get into these smart locks, then what good are they? How do you know if they're on? Because I was saying, to get into the smart lock menu, you need to enter the person's passcode. But the only indication we have that they've got a smart code at the moment, a smart lock, sorry, is if you go into settings security and their password is set to something other than none. But if you can enable ADB, there is a really useful command that you can run, which is ADB shell dump sys. So if I sort of zoom in here, again, I'm going to stand back a little bit, but you can see, I've got them written down here as a little helpful hand. So something that I've not really mentioned as well with Android locks is they're not infinite. So if you imagine every time you activate the phone, the smart lock is like a very slowly dripping away sand timer. And after 4 hours of no activity on the phone, no matter whether it's a location lock, a proximity lock to a Bluetooth device, it's going to click shut after 4 hours. You unlock the screen, it opens up again. You start sending a text message, it opens up again. Unlock the screen, any sort of user interaction with the phone will cause that lock to keep opening up. So we've got two options here. We can either preserve the battery of the phone, because down timer is going to be, preserve the battery of the external device, like the Bluetooth device, keep it charged, keep the phone going. But with something like an Android Wear device like the Moto 360, does anybody have a charger for this in their lab other than people who have the watch? Probably not, because this is quite a niche device. It uses sort of QR charging, but it likes to be in the dock. So you need to either separate the two devices from each other, and that will freeze the lock, or you have to keep the device alive and keep tapping it at least once every 3 hours, 59 minutes to ensure that it stays alive. So using what we now know about smart locks, you can see in log 8 there. Can everybody see that? I know it's a bit big. So in log 8, 182512, grant trust agent, Google trust agent, location trusted. That's me arriving home after a long day in work. So if you're trying to do a murder investigation or a drug supply investigation or something of a similar ilk, and you know what that person's trusted location is, lo and behold, he arrived home at 1825, his wife had already been dead for an hour, it couldn't have been him, or at least his device was. And if you look at the log just above that, you can see I wasn't really doing much on my phone that evening. In log 7 at 2:40 in the morning, if you subtract 4 hours from that, that's me going to bed at about 22:11 at night. Is that right with the maths? Yeah. So I haven't done anything with my phone for 4 hours, and it's locked back up. So again, if you pull the the logs out of the phone, you can get a little bit of an understanding of what that person's doing, where they're going. And you can see on this day here, I was probably having a little bit too much coffee, so in log 27, 29 and 31, every couple of minutes I'm nicking back and forth to the toilet, leaving my phone at my desk, my watch on my wrist, and my position trusted trust is going to false. Revoke trust, revoke trust, revoke trust. And that's me coming back and forth, to and from, away from my phone. And you can see, just leaving it, you don't have to unlock it again. It'll re-invoke that trust every time you come back to the phone, as long as it's within that 4-hour window. Okay. And then if we were to look at a phone without a lock, again, it's not really much help to anybody, but if you did ADB dump sys, you can see there in that top example here, this is a phone that doesn't have any locks. You see, you're not going to get anything at all. And in the one down here, I'm just going to show you, I go on to discuss this a little bit later, but you can see just how quickly some of these logs can be revoked. So at 12, 12, 44, 55, that's been revoked. 12, 12, 32 and 33, it's locking out very quickly, and I'll go on to say what that is a little bit later. Okay, so the fun part, this is the testing that I had to do. So I was thinking, if my phone is going home, it's got to be using a digital system. It's not sentient, it's not a pigeon. It must be using some sort of digital evidence to know when I'm at home. So the first thing that came to my head, Wi-Fi. That's got to be how it's doing it. It's using geofencing. Geofencing uses Wi-Fi. It's got to have something to do with the Wi-Fi. So I cracked open the Wi-Fi Pineapple. And again, I'm trying to sort of keep it down in time. Is everybody familiar with the Wi-Fi Pineapple? Show of hands. If I'll go over very quickly. So it's all good, so everyone has a rough idea. I'm sorry for anybody that hasn't done it, but basically what it will do, it will look for Wi-Fi APNs, or short for access point names, with the one antenna. It will then receive all of the data it's looking at and fire those APNs out with another antenna. So I configured Pine AP. I ran it here, so you can see straight away then my phone started leaking out all of the hotspots that it's ever been connected to, and suddenly it thinks it's in my house. Sadly, that didn't work. Unlike Android KitKat, up until Android version 5.0 or whatever the version before Lollipop was, it didn't have to have the same APN and password. In Lollipop, without really documenting it very well, Google have added an extra layer of trust whereby you not only have to have the same SID, but you have to have the same access point password as well. Does that make sense? So the only way that I was able to do this was to use a forensic tool, so I can either analyze the person's computer and pull out known Wi-Fi passwords. I can look at other phones in the case, and I can pull out Wi-Fi passwords using something like Celebrite or XRY. Or one of the most obvious ways, just crack open their router and have a look at what's written on the bottom. How many userland users are going to be changing their password? If they're silly enough to have a smart lock on, you can't put your hands up here, you're not userland. You're one of the InfoSec people, you're in the conference. It doesn't count, it doesn't count. But, all you would need to do then, in my testing, is fire it up, use a different Android device or something else capable of broadcasting an Android network, a wireless network, and just emulate the same SID and MAC address, and the same SID and password. And that's all you need. It doesn't check the MAC address. It doesn't check that you're in proximity to anywhere too clever, I thought. So, when I did this, I was all excited. Oh, I finally managed to fool it, because a big part of computer forensics is, we have 4 principles we have to abide to under the ACPO principles. We have to, 1, not modify any evidence. 2, if you do have to change evidence, so if you're going to remove a code, or if you're going to have to brute force the system in some way, you have to know what you're doing. 3, you have to document what you're doing. And 4, you have to make sure that the OIC in the case is fully apprised of everything that you're doing. So, really, if I was emulating hotspots and changing this and changing that, this phone suddenly thinks it's been in Nan's house, it's been in Center Parks, it's been in Haven Holidays, it's been in Butlins, it's been at B-Sides. It's suddenly, bang, all of those wireless information records, all of that information about where that phone's been for the last 2 years or whatever, is all gone now. It's no use. So it wasn't really an ideal method, even if I could spoof the wireless network. But what I found was the most tricky thing was when I did this and I got all excited, I took the phone into my office to show all my colleagues what I've done. I enter the Wi-Fi hotspot, I do it, and they go, and look, the phone will unlock. Any minute now, it's going to unlock. And Google have done something very clever here, and this is where everybody in the room comes in, really. I would love to get your feedback on this, because, again, this is quite exhaustive. My wife was watching a series called Pretty Little Liars lately, which was boring as hell, which is why I got the time to do all of this testing. But I tried taking the wireless passcode, turning the SIM out of the phone, taking it to work. It still knew that I'd taken it to work. So I was thinking, it must be using the GPS antenna. So I take the SIM out, I take it to work, it still knows the GPS antenna. Look at the phone, it can still get signal even without a SIM card in. Said, I know how I'm going to fool this. I lock the phone in my house, I let it see my wireless network, it unlocks because it thinks it's to home. I put it in a Faraday bag, I take it all the way to work, I put it in a Faraday box, close the Faraday box, take it out the Faraday bag, it knows I've taken it somewhere. I then disassembled the phone, took out the wireless antenna, took out the GPS antenna, put it in a Faraday bag, took it to work, put it in the Faraday box, closed the box, still knew it was there. So goodness knows how they're doing this, but it's something very clever. I'm guessing it's got to be something to do with an individual timeout on the device, so it needs to either see, and this is the other thing as well, sorry, just going back to my experimentation, I could turn the phone off, I could turn it back on, I could unlock it with the antenna undetached, so it doesn't know what mast I'm near, it doesn't know that I've moved, and it will still unlock in my home. I cannot replicate that a few hours later in the office, I just cannot do it. So there must be something to do with the accelerometer in the phone or gaps, but I've got to be honest, this was a sort of proof of concept, and I could have tested this to death on the S3 that I was using, but that's not really a real life experiment, because as everybody knows, Android is just a base flavour of operating system. Unless you're using something like a Nexus device that has plain Android, which still can be tweaked in ways, documenting this for an individual phone wouldn't have done anybody any good. So I think the only safe way of doing this would be to take it to a person's home, flick off their internet, so you're not going to be able to receive a remote wipe command or anything, emulate the hotspot and do it in their home, because I'd love to tell you why, but it does not work outside of somebody's house. I've got my Twitter handle and my email on there. If somebody else does work it, I'll be gratefully received any feedback. I'll credit you in the paper and we'll republish it somewhere for a much better talk. But, all of this testing that I did, it didn't take 5 minutes, it took me several weeks. And I'm having to do this every morning, take it to Bristol with me, unlock it in work, and I just wanted to share all of my failures really in it, just to let you know what not to do really, because it's a lot of time really, and I don't want anybody else to go through it. Okay, right, you've heard enough of that bit now. Okay, so NFC ones. Now, I don't really understand NFC locks and how they can be used as smart locks. They do seem a little bit pointless and redundant to me, because if you lock your phone, most Android phones are going to turn off your NFC adapter. So even if I've got an NFC adapter on my wall, I come home, hello wife, scan the phone, it's not going to work because my NFC adapter is off. So the only way I can imagine you would be able to use an NFC adapter to enable a smart lock would be, has anyone seen an Android Lollipop? Especially if you've got like a Huddle or something for your kids, you can log in as like an admin and you can log in as like a child or something. So I didn't have enough devices to test this on, but I'd imagine you have to log in as another user that doesn't have pseudo privileges, doesn't have permission to your photographs, doesn't have permissions to your texts, etc., which will then turn on the NFC adapter and scan it. But who's going to really do that? That's not a very practical implementation. It's not like just turning on your watch or starting up your car. It's a bit cumbersome. But if you were to do anything like this, again, learn from my mistakes. I went through a good 10, 20 quid's worth of NFC tags before I realised that peeling them off the wall broke them. So if you're going to do it, get an NFC cloning application and clone the NFC tag, paste it back to another one, and then use that back in the lab, because peeling them off the wall is not going to do it much good. Hello?
And they target things like this, that's a YubiKey Neo, which has got NFC embedded in it.
I haven't actually successfully tested it, because in every phone I've got, I don't have, because of the ROMs I'm running, it didn't give me the option to add that secondary user, because on every main menu of the S3 that I tested, HTC M7 and M8, the NFC adapter was off at the lock screen, which I was trying to bypass. So it would have to be on a ROM that would enable multiple users. That secondary user would enable the NFC tag, and I'm guessing, again, it is only a guess at the moment, scan that NFC tag.
I know, I'm reasonably sure that Google use those with the Nexus devices for two-factor auth.
So that might very well be it. Do you know with the Nexus devices, is the NFC scanner available on lock? Or is it?
I believe so. I have my OS device.
If you could email me any sort of testing that you could do for me, it would be gratefully received. I'll share it with anybody who's interested in hearing it, really. Then we go on again. These aren't quite as tested, but one of the new locks that's come in recently is on body protection, and this one's very, very sneaky. So this one, you've got as little as 44 seconds, and again, I'm not going to tell you how long it took me or how many times I had to pick up the phone. It's a 43, 41. I sort of did a bubble sorting method where I was trying it at 20, then 50, then 35. But I've worked it out exactly 44 seconds. You whip it off the desk in 44 seconds, it's not going to lock. So if you had on-body lock, you can have it in your pocket, if you're walking around all day, you can have it in your handbag, whatever it might be that you want to use. And that phone, if you put it down on the desk, and we've all been there, you come in, what's the first thing you do after you've been on site at an instance? You've been carrying the phone around, you go, I know what, I'm going to go get a brew. So unless you can make a brew in 43 seconds, I do not recommend putting phones down on the table until you've checked their smart lock settings. Again, it's worst case scenario, but we all need to know these sorts of things. But the one good thing with smart locks is, if you were examining it in somebody's house and it had an on-body detection lock on it, putting it down for 44 seconds or more isn't going to lock it out, because every other lock overrides the other. So if you have on-body protection and a watch, the watch is going to enable the phone to stay unlocked. If you have a watch and location settings and the watch dies, but you're still at home, again, it's not going to lock unless that 4 hours kicks in. Does that make sense? So that's something I didn't explain very well previously. Another thing that isn't very helpful is that when you have a device, it will, after 30 days or so, or remind the user, regardless of what lock they've got, whether it's on-body, on-device, face unlock, NFC, it's going to remind them that it's set. And it's going to go, are you sure that you want to set this? I know I reminded you the first time you use it, but are you sure that you want to use this lock? So again, people who accidentally set it or thought it was a really good idea 30 days ago might change their mind at a later stage. And the biggest thing, unfortunately, smart locks only work as long as the phone is powered. So again, most police policies would be, you seize a mobile phone and turn it off. Exactly as the Apple fingerprint sensor works, as soon as you turn that device off, the fingerprint sensor is going to turn off on an iPhone, smart locks are going to turn off on an Android device. It's an irreversible process. If you turn that phone off, regardless of whether it had smart locks, the smart lock logs are going to go because they were stored in RAM, and the smart lock is going to be just completely crapped out. You can't use it anymore, not until that user puts another successful unlock code into it. So that's, again, a little bit of a bummer, because it's only really good for instant response and sort of live action taking on these devices. Because if you're looking into somebody and you think they've got a lock, you really need to consider, you know, have they got a lock on there? Is it going to lock if I put it down on the desk? This is only going to be the higher echelon of criminals. It's going to be the higher echelon of jobs that we can put this sort of thing into, because most of the time we're going to revert to techniques like chip off or JTAG analysis. But again, the higher echelon of criminals, if you had a phone and it was fully encrypted, even if we do a JTAG analysis on this or a chip off analysis, all we're going to get is a fully encrypted copy of their data. Why throw away the key? It just doesn't make any sense. So, so findings so far, so the phone has to be on, as I mentioned. It will work with Wi-Fi, but it seems to be doing something else with the GPS or the cell tower. Your phone will somehow know if it's not in its original location. That still needs to be clarified, which I can't tell you, unfortunately. They will only last up to 4 hours, so you need to ensure that if you're going to prioritise any phones in that case, you need to either do it before the battery dies on the device it's paired to, or you want to ideally do it in the location that it's currently set to be unlocked to. And the Wi-Fi SSID has to be both SSID and password, which wasn't the case before. So that's about it really. So it's less smart locks as forensic examiner's best friend locks, I would say. But does anybody have any questions? Yeah?
When you moved your experimental device from home to office,
Yes.
how much of a wireless environment did you replicate?
It's a very good question. I only did the one wireless SID, and I have heard theories from people, and again, this hasn't been tested, that perhaps it's not looking only at my SSID, but it might also be looking at the surrounding neighbours.
You see, I would be looking for replicating the MAC addresses of the hardware devices as well as the SIDs.
Yes.
So
But
that's how Google's navigation works.
Yes.
If you know the MAC address of a wireless device, you can find its location with the right query to Google.
Yeah. It's a very good theory, and it's one that I've heard before, but I don't have enough devices, unfortunately, to make enough ad hoc networks, and I don't really get along with my neighbours enough to ask them all to turn off their routers for 10 minutes.
You do it all with Pineapple.
Say again,
You
sorry?
do the whole thing with Pineapple.
I could, but again, I'm not too sure whether my neighbours take too kindly to getting knocked off their network every 10 minutes on the
To replicate, take a wireless snapshot
Okay.
Say for example, your wireless environment at home.
Yes.
So all the SIDs, all the MAC addresses, and then it doesn't need to have passwords because you can't log into a native access point, so that's not relevant. So you then, in the office, you spin up 3 or 4 access points, which have got the same SSIDs and the same MAC addresses.
We can exchange details at the end. I'd be very interested. I only know Pine AP to a minimal standard, really. I'd be interested to hear if you've got a way, or if you've got any documents that would show how I could replicate that environment.
I certainly think how to do it, because I do tinkering with wireless stuff.
No, it's really good. No one suggested doing the entire experiment with the pineapple, so that would be interesting. Thank you. Look, yes.
Another thing to add to that is that it may well be using signal strength as well, because I know particularly things like iOS and the Windows bases use signal strength for triangulation.
Yeah.
So it might be that your phone might be thinking you're the wrong side of another AP in terms of triangulation because of the
Oh, I see what you mean.
area.
Okay, yeah.
So it should be using all of that as well as having signal. If they all pop up 100%.
I would be very impressed if they were using signal strength as well. But yeah, there's a valid point.
Carrying on that thought, what you really want to do is setting your home location to be somewhere you can replicate. So three access points that set geographically, but physically separated with at known distances, and then see how much that and you can pick the whole environment up.
Or somewhere with just one SSID, that would be the ideal situation, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah. You're in Wales. You have an opportunity to move far outside of Wales.
Oh, we do have the internet now. We've got fast broadband running water and all that now. It's really come ahead in the last 2 years.
Certainly, my house in Wales, you get one SSID, which is mine.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, yes?
Does the if it's an airport or airplane mode, does the watch unlock it then?
Yes. So I've actually tried it as well, physically disconnecting the GSM antennas, and it will still unlock. So it doesn't have to have any reliable networks. And if you think for things like this is why I've gone down the wireless route, things like tablets, they don't have a GSM antenna necessarily, or a GSM antenna or a GPS antenna all the time. So I think they would have programmed it at a very basic level so that a whole broad spectrum of devices could be used. Just one down the front first, if that's all right. Yes.
Is it me?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Have you tried back to the NFC, these like NFC rings?
It's not picking up any NFC at all, because in all the devices that I've got, they don't the receiver in the phone, so the actual hardware that would read NFC, regardless of what type of NFC it is, isn't on the lock screen. So I would need to find another test device. I've got a liberty of time and a little bit more budget for research now. I'm no longer in the police, but ironically. So I could probably get hold of a little bit more time and some other test devices to test that on. But as I said, the M7, the M8 and the S3 that I tried it on, I didn't have the NFC enabled at the main menu. That was all part of it.
Nexus 5.
Nexus 5. I'll jot that down. Yes, at the back.
So I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in the barrel.
No, go on.
I think that your idea of it knowing where it is based on accelerometer might be the best kind of avenue. Is anybody that uses Google now, is your phone ever gone, oh, you parked your car at X spot? You know, it would never be able to know that based on purely GPS or based on purely cell signals or whatever. It knows it's been moved.
Yes.
And especially with the new smart lock where it knows if it's been put down.
Yes.
I think that your accelerometer might be the big kind of...
And an interesting thing as well, to sort of go with the accelerometer, I didn't mention this, with the 44 seconds, I did test this to death. I've tried it on the table on a train, and the movement of a train is enough to make it think it's moving. Sometimes it's also, I've tried it that way. It's not using the camera, because I thought maybe it's looking for darkness in your pocket, and then when you pull it out, so it won't work that way, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. On any of its sort of 4 axes, you could put it down sideways on the table, balancing on one edge, and it will still know it's set down. This is why I went down the accelerometer route, rather than, you know, a flat level surface. It can be at any angle. I've tried it, sloped upwards, downwards, left, right, up, down. It just looks for lack of movement. So I think if you wanted to, you could put it on a baby swinger and it would still think it's in somebody's pocket. It's looking for that slight degree of movement.
It's change in motion, because I thought you eliminated that by saying you moved it when it was switched off.
Say again, sorry, repeat
You
this.
said you moved it when the device wasn't switched on, and it's still knew it had moved.
This is just specifically
When you were testing.
the position lock, whether it knows it's whether on person. I haven't tested it specifically. It would be interesting to see whether in my home, if I kind of waved it about a bit, whether it had thought it had been moved.
I was almost going to tell you to do that. Have you tried just shaking the absolute balls out of it to just?
Is that a technical term?
It doesn't know where it is. It doesn't know where it's gone. Like when you do a whole journey from home to work, I'm just confusing it.
Off the back of these, if you keep an eye on my Twitter account, the next, I'm going to have to say month because I've got a baby on the way, so I can't promise that I'm going to have all the time in the world in the next sort of few weeks. But if I can find the time, I'll be sure to update the documentation on it, and I'll email it out to the B-Sides people who can send it out to people in the mailing group if people are interested. If not, if you feel free to drop off your business cards, I can ensure that you're clued in on any updates on that. From the middle again? Yeah.
So not quite tying in with what you were saying with Faraday cage. I know the location services for Google now with parking is based on speed as well.
Okay.
When it first came out, there was a bug.
I don't have any speed measurement devices in my house.
It wasn't
Throwing it at the
the
wall.
accelerometer, it was a bug with traffic driving. It considered you cycling because of the speed you were driving at.
Oh, I
It
see.
would say you were cycling from home to work, and if someone sat in stop traffic the whole time.
Is that why when I'm cycling it thinks
The
I'm
average
walking, so I'm so
journey
slow?
time out, he says 12 miles an hour. So I know that for a fact is based on speed, but whether that's something that's like...
So additional experiments. Speed, accelerometer in the house by shaking the balls off it, as my learned friend called it up there, the scientific technique known to all men. And were there any other suggestions? And the NFC adapter on an Nexus 6.
And replicate all of your wireless environment.
And replicate. Which is easy, I'll get it done in 5 minutes, no problem. Did you have a question? There may well be a couple of element as well. See, this is what I like about this talk. It's not necessarily overly techy, and this is something actually I was just going to bring up. You know, with all of the different things, you can hack the phones, you can rip apart the GUI and everything. But I always like this old XKCD quote. You know, he's sort of saying his laptop's encrypted. Let's build $1 million cluster to crack it. Yeah, not a bad idea, but really, sometimes the best idea is a $5 wrench. And this is exactly what smart locks are. You know, we can do chip-offs, we can do JTAGs, but sometimes the $5 wrench is occasionally the best idea. Any further questions? No? No, okay, one more. Yes?
Is the smart lock implementation a part of the open source Android?
I forget the name of it. Right at the beginning I mentioned it. It was Google Trust Agents. So it doesn't have to be specifically smart locks. All of this testing was done on the Google Smart Lock service. You could build your own API and APK, including smart lock functionality. So in the testing that I've got, I have to make sure that I bring this chap's website up, just to get him some credit here. A lot of this was brought up by visiting this this website here by a chap, Nelenkov. He made an app called Ghetto Lock. An example, and showed as an example everything that I'm showing you here with his own custom built app. So you know it's not exclusive to smart locks, and I'm sure if I was a far more talented programmer or any sort of programmer at all, I could rip apart the ROM and have a slightly better understanding of how it knows it's at the location, because it's all going to be in the source code, but unfortunately that's a little bit beyond my skill set.
The short answer is it's not in the open source components. If you flash your Android devices with Synology, it's one of the things you do not get until you install Google's the Google App packages.
Oh, GAPS, they abbreviated to, yeah. So it'll be part of the GAPS package. And I've been seeing incremental updates, just like location locks used to be exclusively to home and work. They're now down to geofencing. Whereas the smart locks used to be any Bluetooth device, you just tapped it and it got added. You now tap it and have to put your lock code in, so it is evolving.
So just to follow up on that, then there's one idea for your many experiments you're going to run.
Yeah, no, I need to write these all down before they fall out my head.
Your Faraday box experiment, if you say it's reasonable to use for work, have you tried just using them in the box for the same amount of time at home? Because it's like possible that it's just timing out, not being able to connect to any location.
I have, but I'm too impatient. I have considered that, but having the forethought, I've got a little bit of a scatterbrain, as you can see with the going back and forth with the slides. I could put it in a bag for 2 hours and have an alarm set, and I'll have forgotten what the alarm was for by the time it goes off, with all the different casework and stuff we've got going on in the office. But it is a fair point. But I'd say it'd probably be exclusive to, it's not going to be exclusive to the OS, it's going to be ROM dependent. So would it be worth testing? I don't know. Thank you for listening. I got some business cards I'll leave at the front if anybody's interested. We do offer a free consultation service, and one of the particular services that we do is PGP encrypted chip-offs on BlackBerry devices, which I believe we are the sole provider for in the UK. So feel free to visit us at slytech-consultants.com. Thank you very much.
So that's the final talk on track 2 today. The closing remarks are just about to happen in track 1, so if you could make your way there, that would be much appreciated. We've got some prizes to give out. So there's quite a few people gone home as well, so it'd be good to pack that theatre out.